In this video, I'm going to take you through the process I use to render the same image in 3 different media. First, in a graphite pencil drawing, which you can see evolving here, then in a watercolor, and finally in an oil. Each of these is in a different format. The drawing is 6 by 9 inches on very smooth paper. In this case I've used Yupo and a number 8 graphite pencil. I start at one side and put in my darks and work across the drawing. Try to keep my tonal range consistent, but once I've done the entire drawing I can of course go back and add more details to the darker areas particularly, although you can lift out a bit with the graphite too with an eraser if you're careful about it. Here you can see I've established the tonal values of the entire drawing, and the only thing left to do is to add a few details, particularly small line work, and the entire drawing will be finished and ready to go on to the next step of the watercolor painting. Once I've finished my drawing, I set it up again on my work table, and I put it up above the area where I'm going to be working on my watercolor painting. I lay out the paper for the watercolor painting with a very, very brief sketch indicating just the main areas, and particularly the areas that will be the shadow areas. I start to lay these in with blue, either ultramarine blue or cobalt blue dark, and then I play a warm tone, a warm dark tone off from those blue areas, in this case Venetian red, but any dark warm tone will work for this kind of thing. I start to lay in some of the middle tones as well, and I keep pushing the dark areas further, and then I add some other colors, the blue for the sky for example, and some of the green areas in this painting that will indicate the vegetation, still referring to my drawing as I go along for the tonal values. Then I start to add some details. Here you can see I'm adding some of the larger vegetation and still working with the warm and cool tones in alternate layers, and then finally adding the dark details, working from light to dark as you do in a watercolor painting, and at the very end adding some texture in the foreground, particularly with some spatter. The process for the oil painting is much the same, except that the oils are not transparent as the watercolors are. I don't like to start on a plain white background, so I lay in some kind of background. In this case it was yellow ochre, just to cut the white, and then I start putting in the darks with ultramarine blue. My palette for oils is very, very limited. I only have at the most a half a dozen colors. I use the blues and yellows to mix greens, and I have a yellow ochre, and I use some red to make my brown earth tones. Otherwise I proceed much as I did for the watercolor painting, with the contrast of warm and cool colors and adding the details at the end, and working, unlike watercolor, back to white at the very end for some of the lightest area. When the oil is finished, we have all 3 pieces done from the same original image, each with its own special characteristics: the drawing, the watercolor painting, and the oil painting.